Imagine waking up in the middle of the night, but there is no bed, no room, and no door to lock. You are lying on a bed of dry leaves in the middle of a pitch-black forest 30,000 years ago. The air is freezing, and the only light comes from the dying embers of a small campfire. Suddenly, you hear a sound. A twig snaps in the dark. You freeze. Your heart beats in your chest. In this era, a sound in the night isn't a draft or a settling house. It is a cave lion, a pack of hyenas, or a giant bear, and you are soft, slow, and basically a snack with anxiety. You grip your wooden spear, staring into the blackness. You are completely alone, and you are terrified. But then, you hear a low growl right next to you. It isn't a threat, it's a warning. A pair of eyes glows in the firelight, staring exactly where the twig snapped. A warm, furry body stands up, ears perked, ready to fight. Suddenly, you aren't alone anymore, and you aren't just a snack. You are part of a team. Today, we look at our dogs and see fluffy companions who wear sweaters, get confused by mirrors, and expect us to order their favorite kibble on a subscription plan. We treat them like family, which makes sense because, well, they are. But here is the thing. Dogs are not just a nice addition to human life. They are one of the primary reasons we survived to build civilization in the first place. Before we domesticated sheep, cows, or horses, we formed an alliance with a wild apex predator, the wolf. This was the first time in Earth's history that humans formed a permanent cooperative partnership with another species, and it completely rewrote the rules of survival. Without dogs, our history would look completely different. We might have never crossed the freezing Arctic, herded livestock, or even had the safety to sleep deeply enough to keep our massive brains running. So how did a wild killer become our closest partner? And how did they help us conquer the planet? To understand that, we have to look at the brutal mathematics of prehistoric survival. Let's start with the most basic problem of being a prehistoric human: getting food. On paper, humans are terrible hunters. We don't have sharp claws, we can't run 60 miles an hour, and we can't smell a wounded deer from a mile away. If a lone human tries to chase down a wild horse or a mammoth, the human is going to run out of energy long before the animal does. Prehistoric hunting was a high-stakes gamble where losing meant starving, and winning often involved getting kicked by a half-ton beast. But then, the wolves entered the equation. Wolves had everything we lacked: an incredible sense of smell, tireless endurance, and the ability to track prey for miles. However, wolves had their own problem. They lacked a way to easily kill massive game without taking huge risks. A cornered bison can easily crush a wolf's skull. Humans, on the other hand, had spears, planning, and projectiles. We were excellent at the killing blow, but terrible at the chase. When humans and early dogs started working together, it was like combining a high-tech tracking system with a long-range missile. The dogs would sniff out the prey, track it through dense forests, and run it to exhaustion. They would encircle the animal, barking and keeping it cornered. Then, the humans would arrive, safely throw their spears, and finish the job. Turns out, this partnership was a massive calorie cheat code. Studies of modern hunter-gatherer groups, like the Hadza in Tanzania, show that hunting with dogs increases the chance of finding game by over 50%. It turns out that dogs don't just help you catch more food, they make the entire process cost less energy. Instead of wandering blindly for days, humans could follow their dogs directly to the target. This extra food meant larger tribes, healthier children, and a buffer against winter starvations. We didn't just survive. We started to thrive. But food is only half the battle. To survive, you also have to sleep. And in the Pleistocene, sleeping was one of the most dangerous things you could do. Think about the energy cost of vigilance. If you are a group of humans sleeping around a fire, someone always has to stay awake. You have to take shifts, staring into the dark, listening for predators. If the guard falls asleep, the whole group becomes a buffet. This constant state of alert creates high levels of stress hormones, which is exhausting for the body and bad for the brain. Enter the dogs. Dogs have ears that can detect high-frequency sounds far beyond human hearing, and they can rotate their ears to pinpoint exactly where a sound is coming from. Their noses are 40 times more sensitive than ours. While the humans slept, the dogs stayed in a semi-alert state at the edge of the camp. This allowed humans to do something incredibly rare in the animal kingdom: outsourced their security. With dogs on guard duty, prehistoric humans could fall into deep, restorative REM sleep. This sleep is crucial. It is during deep sleep that our brains clean out toxins, consolidate memories, and process complex problem solving. Some evolutionary biologists believe that this security blanket is what allowed the human brain to grow and function at such a high level. We didn't need to waste brain power on nocturnal vigilance because we had a furry, four-legged alarm system doing it for us. If a predator approached, the dogs would bark. If a rival group tried to sneak up, the dogs would growl. The camp was secure. For the first time, humans could turn their backs on the dark and rest. As the climate shifted and the last glacial maximum set in, the world turned into a freezing desert. Survival became a question of heat and movement. Humans had to follow migrating herds across vast, barren landscapes covered in ice. But how do you move your camp, your children, and your tools across hundreds of miles of snow when you don't have horses or wheels? You pack it onto the dogs. Long before horses were domesticated, dogs were our beasts of burden. Prehistoric dogs were fitted with small packs, carrying tent poles, tools, and dried meat. In the far north, humans developed the first sleds, hitching teams of dogs to pull heavy loads over the ice. This simple transport technology allowed humans to push deeper into the Arctic circles, migrating across places where survival seemed impossible. In fact, many archaeologists believe that humans could not have successfully migrated across the freezing Bering Land Bridge into the Americas without dogs carrying their survival gear. And when the sun went down and the temperature dropped to -40, dogs served another vital purpose. They were our heaters. Inside the small tents and shelters, humans slept huddled together with their dogs. The phrase three-dog night isn't just a metaphor. It was a literal measure of temperature. If it was a one-dog night, it was chilly. A three-dog night meant it was freezing, and you needed three dogs packed close to your body to prevent hypothermia. Dogs have a higher baseline body temperature than humans, making them perfect living hot water bottles. They kept us warm, and in return, we shared our fire and the fatty marrow from our hunts. It was a perfect, cozy circle of survival. But the most incredible part of this story isn't just what dogs did for us, it's what we did to each other. Over thousands of years, humans and dogs did something unique. We co-evolved. Normally, when two species interact, one is the predator and the other is the prey, or they compete for the same food. But humans and wolves chose cooperation, and this choice began to alter our genetics. For example, dogs are the only animals that can easily read human eye movements and gestures. If you point at a cup, a dog will look at the cup. Even chimpanzees, our closest genetic relatives, will just look at your finger. Dogs evolved a special muscle above their eyes that allows them to raise their inner eyebrows, giving them those classic expressive puppy dog eyes that trigger a nurturing response in humans. When a human and a dog look into each other's eyes, both of their brains release oxytocin, the exact same hormone that bonds a mother to her newborn baby. We literally hacked each other's biochemistry to create trust. At the same time, humans changed too. As we relied more on dogs for tracking and hearing, our own physical senses began to shift. We didn't need to smell things as sharply because the dog did it. Some scientists even hypothesize that our partnership with dogs allowed humans to become more peaceful and cooperative with each other. By learning to communicate with and trust a completely different species, we unlocked new levels of empathy and social coordination that helped us build larger, more complex societies. We didn't just domesticate dogs. In a way, they domesticated us. So, why did dogs change human history? Because they were the ultimate force multiplier. They were our radar in the dark, our partners in the chase, our heaters in the freeze, and our guides into new worlds. They allowed us to move faster, sleep deeper, and hunt larger prey, turning a vulnerable primate into the dominant species on Earth. The next time you look at your dog sleeping on the rug, twitching their paws as they dream, remember, they are not just a pet. They are the keepers of an ancient, sacred contract. A contract signed in the ashes of prehistoric campfires, written in shared marrow, and tested against the freezing winds of the Ice Age. Every time you toss them a treat or scratch them behind the ears, you are paying a debt that is 30,000 years old. A debt for the nights they stood between us and the dark. keeping the monsters away so we could rest, dream, and build the modern world. What do you think? If a wild predator showed up at your tent tonight, would your dog protect you, or would they try to make friends with it? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to discover how prehistoric humans survived other extreme challenges, check out our video on how they survived winter.